Here's an email we received, Adriel. This is from Titus, and he says, James 4:3 says, You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. I've been praying to God to give me a godly wife to curb my passions in light of 1 Corinthians 7:9, which says, But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. But James 4:3 seems to imply that God won't answer my prayer because I seek to fulfill my passion. Is that right?
Yeah, so let me just begin in verse 1 of James chapter 4. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your own passions. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? And so it seems like the request here is for something that actually is not honoring to the Lord. It's the desire to fulfill these sinful passions. Now, we know that sexual desires aren't necessarily sinful. That is a part of how God made us. And He made those desires to be fulfilled in the context of marriage. That's actually one of the things that's talked about in this booklet that we just offered right there on why anyone should get married. But a couple of things that I would just want to say to you, brother, as to your question. First, marriage does not solve the issue of lust. I think that this is really important because there are a lot of young men and young women out there who think, oh, if only I were married, this wouldn't be a problem. No, we begin to mortify those sins now. Years ago, I was talking, actually, it was just a year ago now. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a church planter, and he was saying he was talking to another individual who was interested in church planting, and he asked this guy, why is it that you want to plant a church? And the guy responded to him and said, I want to plant a church because I want to preach every Sunday. I just love preaching. And my friend sort of wisely responded, wanting to plant a church so that you can preach is sort of like wanting to get married just so that you can have sex. I mean, it's a part of what happens in marriage, but this is not everything. And so we have to have a sort of right understanding of these things and be careful that we're not thinking of this other person as just the way to solve this issue of lust. Yes, the Apostle Paul does say in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 that if we have these desires, it's an indication that we're probably not called to celibacy, that God has not given us that gift, that we should be married. And so I would say continue to pray for that because that is a good desire, and in the meantime, to practice contentment, to trust in the Lord, to draw near to the Lord, to not try to take matters into your own hands in terms of forcing something, dating someone who maybe isn't a Christian or who doesn't have the same values that you have. I think you have to prioritize your relationship with God, continue to pray and to trust in the Lord, and to trust that the Lord hears these prayers as He's placed these desires in your heart, and know that the Lord is going to answer those prayers in His timing. And in the meantime, just continuing to exercise that contentment that I think we're all called to in whatever stage of life that we're in. God bless.